Hey, I'm Andy, and welcome to Rock, Roll, and Red Plaid. Our first guest on this new podcast is my guitar teacher, Raleigh Green. 2006, 2016,
Has it
but
been that long?
nonetheless, you keep wondering, and the guy is who? What's it? Ladies and gentlemen, Raleigh Green.
Thank you. And how old is he? Wait, yeah.
Now, my question, and I ask this of all different musician friends of mine, everybody has the first episode, no, not episode, the first song, first artist, or someone they hear where they go, "What is that? I want to do something like that." It's the aha moment. Who was it for you personally that was made you go, "Whoa, I gotta figure out what that's all about"?
Well, I would answer that by saying the first song that I ever became obsessed with, that I just couldn't wait until I heard it on the radio, was Stray Cat Strut by the Stray Cats.
Really?
I just
Okay.
thought it sounded so cool. But the first artist that I ever became obsessed with was definitely Michael Jackson.
Really?
And
Okay.
then after that, it was Prince, and I always loved to hear Prince and Michael Jackson on the radio. And I do remember the one time when I was probably, oh gosh, 9 or 10, and we moved to Duluth, Minnesota, and we had a radio station there, and it was the one time where I've called in to request music on a radio station, and I was like, I want to hear "Beat It" and "Thriller." And I remember the guy was like, Michael music, all right.
And the joke is on you. Now we have that tape here. No, we don't.
So it was definitely Michael Jackson. He was my first
Wow.
musical obsession, and I
Okay.
still absolutely love Michael Jackson.
That's really interesting because you heard Eddie and you probably didn't even realize it was Eddie,
Exactly, right.
on Beat It, of course.
hmm
But
But that's different from the first song that I became obsessed with guitar wise. That's different.
yes, that was another question being like, was there a riff or part of a song solo that made you go, okay, now what's that?
Mm.
You know?
Well, so what happened is I went away to eighth grade boarding
Hmm.
school. I went to North Carolina, and I took my mom's beautiful Gibson nylon string guitar with me. And the dorm counselor, Andy, was a guitar player, and he gave me my first guitar lessons. And I just no coincidence there.
No, just note.
So he taught me my first song, and that was Puff the Magic Dragon. And
Love
I
it.
was working through G chords and sort of things like that, and it worked out pretty well.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then he introduced me to Blackbird as my second
Oh,
song ever, and it
okay.
seemed like an impossible task where you've got multiple lines going on, and it would ramp from here to there. But I sort of muddled my way through the. And once I got that, it was like, wait a minute, this is possible. And I became obsessed. And for
Hmm.
about a period of 2 months, I set out to learn Blackbird. And I
Wow.
finally ended up getting Blackbird. And by the end of that whole experience, I knew I would be playing guitar for the rest of my life,
That's fantastic.
which is why I now have this beautiful
Oh, here we go.
Blackbird picture on my wall. And this
Wow.
is a visual representation of Blackbird. The melody's on top and the harmony is on the bottom. And this is actually a visual map of the song Blackbird. And I was just like, you know what? This is still my favorite song. It's the song that means the most to me. I think it's one of the greatest songs ever written. It represents so much to me, so
Yeah.
it encapsulates
Yeah.
how I started guitar and how I knew that I would be a guitar player for my entire life.
Ironically enough, when we went to see Alter Bridge, who's the shirt I'm wearing today, that's an old ratty shirt at this point, but they had this record was called Blackbird,
Mm.
and every time they play that song live, I don't know if you remember this, but when we went to see them, before they started playing their song of the same title, Miles, the
Hmm.
lead singer, rhythm guitar player, did a little bit of the beginning of the Beatles'
Nice.
Blackbird tune. Which I
Awesome.
looked at you because I've heard you tell that story before, and I go, okay,
Hmm.
if this doesn't sell him at this point,
Right. I'm sold.
yeah. If someone says they don't like the Beatles, I believe they're lying.
Mm,
That's
right.
just me personally. There's a
Right.
couple artists who I say that about. You can't not like at least something by, let's see, the Beatles, Stevie Wonder, either.
If you don't like that, then you just don't like music at all,
Yeah.
or something.
So, here's a kind of a teaching question. I've taken lessons from you for since 1819 whatever,
Totally.
since 1806. Now it was you and I and Rasputin and
Right.
Abe Lincoln kicking out the jams.
Totally.
Who made you think I could even do that?
Interesting. Well, I
That
would
way.
say um, my parents, growing up with them, was an interesting experience because for three reasons. One, they were very supportive of music and the arts, so it was always in the house.
Pardon me.
They were both musicians, not professional musicians, but hobbyists,
Sure.
so heard music in the house. But they were also both teachers. So my mom was a Montessori school teacher, and my dad
Oh.
taught art history and was a professional photographer. So I think just by osmosis, being around them helped me get a sense of what sort of questions to ask in order to be a good learner, which
Mm.
ends up then influencing how to become a good teacher. So I would say that probably started back then. However, I would say I've had so many teachers and so many amazing teachers, but I did not encounter my most influential teacher until I had actually already graduated from Berkeley.
Ah.
And that was Charlie Banakis. And he was a uh, legendary piano instructor who, he's the stuff of legend. And working with Charlie Banakis was life changing. And I studied with him for 6 years until he died, sadly. But he completely reinforced some of the things that I intuitively felt were important about teaching, but he also introduced me to a whole way of thinking where everything is connected.
Mm.
And the sense that to really, really understand a topic, how important long term projects are. And to realize that if you want to really fully explore a topic, it's nice to be able to pull it apart and explore every single possible aspect of that topic. So, as a result, after doing that, I felt like he really changed my whole entire philosophy of what it means to be a teacher and what it means to learn.
That's that's great because the level of detail. It's like I see that in you for sure, and that has trickled into me for sure. Like
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a level of OCD counts in either recording or performing
Mm-hmm.
or playing a part. Like you said, working 2 months on one song, being Blackbird. They're like, oh, you should have heard the song Andrew put together. I'm like, well, it's devils in the details. I hate that shit.
Mm.
I'd rather say, geniuses in the details, not calling myself either a devil or a genius. But,
Right, right. Mm-hmm.
it's those little things that'll count that make someone go, oh, what's that? I want to play that back and hear
Absolutely.
it. What was the best and worst gig you have ever played?
Okay. So I would say the best gig that I ever played, I was backing up an artist. He was an amazing singer, and he had a CD release party scheduled at Johnny D's, which is no longer
Oh.
around. There was one moment in there where we played a tune, and the band was killing, and I ended up playing a solo that brought the house down.
Yeah,
And
buddy.
it felt so good playing it, and it felt so good coming from, and the thing is I felt a little bit like a time traveler where I could see where I was trying to go and then executed it in the perfect
Yeah.
way and ended up coming to the climax of the solo
Working your
right
way out.
at
Yep.
around the golden ratio, and then started coming down and working down from it and brought the house down. And even
Hey,
after the
buddy.
show, the sound man approached me and was like, "Man, that must have felt great." And it was clear that it resonated through the whole building. Now on to the worst
On
one.
the other hand, because I'll
So
give you
I
mine
would
too.
say the worst gig that I had was actually not a gig, but it was at Berkeley, was on a scholarship, and as part of that scholarship, I was required to back up certain bands. Big band arranging session that
Okay.
I was tasked to be the guitar player for. And I went in there, and these charts were very complicated, a lot of really hard sight reading. And in the real time, you've really only got one take. These were being recorded.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And I muddled my way through, and I got to the point where I was supposed to be comping for a piano player. And I ended up getting one bar off. And as a result, every single thing I was playing was as wrong as it possibly could be.
Oh no.
And, uh,
Ooh.
and as we reached the end of the song, the director he took his book and he flipped through it. He was like, "I think we're all set." And I got kicked out. And
Raleigh,
it was
I'm so
sorry. Absolutely humiliating. But it was also a big lesson learned,
Sure.
because I realized how important communication is, where I could have said something and said, "Guys, I'm so sorry. I was just a bar off. Could we do a retake?" Because I knew that that's what would happen. But from their perspective, they must have been thinking like, "Why is this guy even here?"
Yeah.
But it also pointed to me the importance of being prepared and being a solid sight reader, because these were the things that I was working on, and I just wasn't up to the task that particular day. So
I did not mean to laugh, but my worst gig is kind of relatable. Oh my gosh. I used to play upright bass in the school orchestra for like half a semester. I'm not even kidding. It was like half a semester before I transferred out of it. I was a junior in high school, and we had 2 songs to play, and I was one of the upright bass players. It's only because it was tall enough for me to, that was the only one that had the thing to reach up because I was tall, still
right.
tall. But one of the songs was "Don't Stop Believin'," okay, it was like, and then the other one was like a more traditional string. And I had memorized the parts just because I watched her play it, and then I watched our instructor teach it to us. And the day of the show comes, I get in my tux. I hate getting in tuxes. I hate that whole thing. It's like I don't even know what that thing is. I thought it was a belt. It's not a belt. Whatever.
Cummerbund.
Exactly. But I didn't have my music. Every single person, especially the teacher who will not be named, they're all looking at me like this. Guys, I got it. I don't need to read it. I'm like, I think I did horrible. So that was really nerve-wracking. But the best gig was probably also the longest gig I've ever played in my life. It was like a 32-song set.
Holy cow.
Yeah, I know. The band I was in, Something Something Buy a T-shirt, SS Bats, Buck Arsenault on drums, Alex Jafka on bass, backing vocals, and me on guitar, and Trevor Marvel doing lead vocals, occasional rhythm guitar. We played basically everything we knew. Sometimes when a band gets playing and the tempo ebbs and flows a little bit because we're not playing click track, no backing tracks, and it was epic. Trevor coming to the front of the stage because we were in Manchester, New Hampshire. I just remember he went, "Manchester!" You can't do that in a club.
Right.
It's not even an option, but he did it. I just remember I'm like, yeah! It's like we're across the street at the arena. No, we're here at this brew pub. But
It's like Bruce Dickinson's "Sing to Me Long Beach" moment.
we're not even in Long Beach. One last question. Is there anyone you would ever want to collab with that might surprise people?
Is this someone who's alive or anyone?
You know what? Let's pull that card. Anybody,
Gotcha. Well, I would say, my 2 absolute music heroes are John Coltrane and Johann Sebastian Bach. So what I would love is to get together a trio. And
Cole Green Bach trio.
But I think mostly I would just want to listen to them.
And on that note, rock, roll, and red plaid, I think we got it.
Awesome.